I have enjoyed building a YouTube following based on my love for hockey. Doing hockey videos every day has been a dream. It really has. But I really love movies and television. Last night, for instance, I watched Killjoys um, and Dark Matter, and Killjoys made me very, very angry. Dark Matter almost made me angry, and then it made me happy at the end. But um, also, last night's Dark Matter had Will Wheaton on it, so I got to picture Sheldon coming in and yelling Wheaton, which is a Big Bang Theory callback, which is awesome because I plan to talk about Evil Dead, so nothing I've talked about so far has anything to do with the title of this video. Now, the reason I'm going to talk about Evil Dead is because Fede Alvarez has a new movie out called Don't Breathe, which features Jane Levy. I don't know or care who else is in it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to see it today. I'm using probably more money than I should to go and see a movie that honestly, to me, looks terrifying. I think it's going to scare the hell out of me. Um, I think it's going to be gross and creepy and awesome. And in order to properly explain my excitement to see this movie, I should realistically look back at the Evil Dead franchise. It didn't start out as a franchise. And I often get accused of certain things, so I'm gonna go in chronological order here. When I was a kid in the 80s, I challenged a friend of mine. I said, I will rent the movie. We used to rent videos at the store, VHS tapes. I will rent a movie that scares me to death. That's the scariest, grossest thing I've seen. You rent the one that you think is the grossest, scariest that you've seen to date, and at the end of the night, we'll decide who the winner is. There was no winnings of any sort. It was just sort of a bragging rights thing. So I brought Chud. I'm just letting that sink in. That at that point I had so little experience with horror movies that were actually horror movies beyond the Friday the 13th and Elm Streets of this world, that Chud was the most graphic movie I had seen to that point. He brought this. This movie left me unable to sleep, caused me to react violently when my cat decided it was time to be frisky after the movie and he was running around the house. It's okay, the guy who watched the movie with me who'd seen it before had the same reaction. I want to say 13 or 14 when I saw this. The original Evil Dead is a movie made on a shoestring budget that features some of the most disgusting special effects. It hasn't aged particularly well, and the Blu-ray exposes some weaknesses in the practical effects used in the movie. Now, a reason to see the original Evil Dead, even if you don't like big-time horror movies, is a lot of what Sam Raimi brought to the table in terms of cinematography and in terms of creative camera angles and quick cuts started here. This is a non-stop horror ride. Once they start reading the playing cards and Chicky over here decides she's going to start actually predicting which cards are showing. From there on, it's just endless gore, horrible violence. But as I said, it doesn't age particularly well. And there's some sketchy parts of it that I never quite understood. Like the pencil scene. And anybody who's seen the movie knows the pencil scene. I'm assuming anybody watching this has watched the original movie. How do you become possessed based on the fact that a pencil gets jammed into your ankle? I mean, that's going to hurt like hell. You're not going to be able to walk for a while. But there was no actual transfer of blood or, like, how you become possessed in this movie is sketchy at best. It just seems to be that the spirit roaming the woods randomly decides. But it's no problem damaging the vessels it's going to possess before possessing them, which seems like a counterintuitive way to possess somebody. You might want them to be a little stronger. The actor who played Scott who I'm assuming is Hal Delrich, awful. And I say that in the most affectionate way possible. His acting is terrible. Every line he delivers in this movie is cringeworthy. And when he gets upset towards the end and he's dying, and Ash is trying to give him water, like that's gonna make a fucking difference. He gets worse. He gets worse as the movie goes along. Now, this was the coming out party for Bruce Campbell slash Ash. Ash was not a hero, though. Okay? He's a survivor. And he's a survivor despite himself. Because every time he has a chance to finish Linda off, he doesn't do it. Because he's an idiot. That's why the first time I watched this, I coined the term ashhole. Ashhole. Finish the job. Ashhole. She's going to come back. It's a trick. He was an idiot in this movie. And I think this movie existed solely for Sam Raimi to beat the shit out of Bruce Campbell as often as possible. But in the end, it was a fantastic movie that stood on its own, and it was viewed as a movie that could get them funding for other movies they wanted to make. I don't think they ever expected that it would get the unplanned publicity of becoming one of the nasties of the 80s. This movie was banned at one point. This movie was considered rated X at one point. This movie is so over the top in terms of its depiction of people getting dismembered and destroyed physically that the movie industry decided we got to get rid of this shit, and this was one of the movies that got thrown under the bus, along with Cannibal Holocaust. Now, the difference is this is a good movie. Cannibal Holocaust is an endless piece of shit. I hate Cannibal Holocaust. I've tried watching it, and it's just awful. What Cannibal Holocaust did that this one didn't do is Cannibal Holocaust submits to the over-the-top violence that doesn't seem to have a point, and sexuality in a twisted, nasty, horrible manner. And there's all kind. I mean, a woman gets raped by a tree in this movie, and I'm more offended by Cannibal Holocaust. But this movie's great if you can handle it. You can handle the gore and the nasty, and the fact that it doesn't really have an ending. It's great. In between Evil Dead 1 and Evil Dead 2, Sam Raimi lost the rights to his own movie. He lost the rights to it, but he wanted to do a sequel. Well, how can you do a sequel without summing up what happened in the first movie? Because there were a lot of people who weren't allowed to watch this movie. So when you do a sequel, bam, Evil Dead 2, with a cartoonish cover that depicts a guy in the cellar. So this cover isn't even accurate. Then the back of this DVD drives me nuts, because this may have been a scene that was cut, but it's never in the movie, where his own hand actually choked by his own hand. It may have been that making this look practically decent on screen was impossible. But when you show stuff on the box of a movie that's not actually in it, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. So Evil Dead 2, because he didn't have the rights to the first movie, they had to reshoot the first movie in like 20 minutes. Not even. So instead of it being him and all of his buddies going to the cabin and listening to this tape that brings the spirit alive in the woods that crawls around deciding it's going to kill everybody in the cabin, it's just him and Linda. And Linda's taken within 5 minutes of the movie starting. And this is all just the backdrop for Evil Dead 2. And then he has to kill her, and they go over the top with the comedy. Right off the bat, you can see that Sam Raimi said, you know what, I'm going to combine the original Evil Dead with Three Stooges. I hate the Three Stooges. I don't find anything Three Stooges ever did funny. And yet this movie is awesome. This movie is great. And when my kids were old enough to start watching horror movies, this was one of the first ones I pulled out. Freddy vs. Jason was first because it's camp and it's fun. This was the second one I pulled out because I said at the time, this is the perfect horror movie. Keep that in mind. This to me was the perfect horror movie. It was a combination of laughs, and it's only 84 minutes long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Raimi knew, you know what, this movie's not going to have a lot of content, which is fine. There's no storyline. We don't get into who Ash is. why he's out there. Nobody cares. They just want to see mayhem. And Bruce Campbell gets the crap beat out of him more in this movie than he did in the first. And they admit in the commentary track that Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, the co-writer and special effects artist as well. They're all on the. I highly recommend the commentary track on this movie. I know it's available on Netflix, the movie, but the commentary track isn't. The DVD or Blu-ray are worth it just for the commentary track. It is some of the funniest shit I've ever heard in a commentary track in my life. Because Raimi straight up says, and here we just threw shit at Bruce all day. Like it's all about beating up Bruce Campbell. But this was when Bruce Campbell starts to become a hero. When Sam Raimi decided, okay, if I'm going to do a second movie, I gotta toughen Bruce up a little bit and make him a little cooler. So Evil Dead 2 is amazing. It did not get banned. There is some graphic violence in it, but they cut back on the body dismemberment. The body dismemberment doesn't really happen. There's a great, horrible, fake-looking scene, but great kind of puke-worthy scene where an eyeball comes out and goes down a girl's throat. And you can see a string, you can see, but just the idea of that, it's just terrifying and gross. just nasty. You know, I wouldn't want my own eyeball going down my throat. I don't need somebody else's going down my throat. So anyways, Evil Dead 2 made a decent amount of money. Reset what would become a franchise of sorts. And is one of the most enjoyable horror movies ever. I can just, if it's on TV, I'll sit and watch the whole thing start to finish, even though I have the DVD. Now, third is Army of Darkness. From the director of Spider-Man and Drag Me to Hell, Army of Darkness, Screwhead Edition. And nowhere on here does it mention that it's an Evil Dead movie. When this came out, I had an argument with a friend of mine, because there was a comic of this. There was a comic of Army of Darkness. And I said, well, it's Evil Dead 3. He said, no, it's not. I'm like, dude, it's Evil Dead 3. He has a chainsaw in his hand. It's Bruce Campbell. It's Evil Dead 3. They just don't call it that because they want to make money. He argued to me over and over and over again. Now, he'd never seen Evil Dead 1 or 2, but he was certain I was wrong. It was one of the most frustrating arguments I've ever had with a human being in my life. And at some point, I gave up and I wandered off. I don't know if I talked to him again after that. That might have been it. But, and he had been a friend of mine, but it was like, you are making me want to strangle you right now because this is Evil Dead 3. What they did with this one is, Army of Darkness is fun, it's funny, and it's only 14A, it's not 18A or rated R. It is that's Canadian ratings. Canadian ratings, we have PG, 14A, 18A, and R, which gets rid of the whole PG-13 bullshit. And 14A, the ratings in Canada make much more sense. If it's just swearing, you're not going to get an R rating. Kids can't get in. It's just language. Nobody cares up here. If you're American, of course, you get an R rating right away, and kids can't get in without an adult being there with them. This movie made money, has more catchphrases than you can shake a stick at. Now, what's funny is, a lot of the catchphrases in this are pulled from this. Evil Dead 2 had a lot of good catchphrases too, whether it's groovy or whatever it is. There's catchphrases in that one. This movie, from start to finish, is amazing. And Army of Darkness is a movie I don't consider to be horror. But let's be honest. If this came out now, if a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Freddy Krueger, Friday the 13th, if any of these guys ever took a comedy turn, they'd be savaged by moviegoers. How dare you? You're destroying. The original Evil Dead was a classic. What have you done to Ash? You've made him this wisecracking idiot. This is terrible. Why are you doing this? It would have got absolutely destroyed. And the battle at the end of the movie, where basically an army of skeletons goes up against Ash and his band of primitive screwheads, it would get savage too. Maybe that's the fakest battle I've ever seen. That's stupid. That Three Stooges bit in the Klaatu Verata necktie, definitely an N-word. That would have got absolutely slaughtered. in today's media, social media, and even movie reviewers may have hated it. But because it was before the age of the internet troll, this movie made a lot of money compared to its budget. I think these days you have to compare a movie to its budget. This movie was made on a shoestring budget. This is clearly a love letter from Sam Raimi to the Three Stooges and Evil Dead. And it is amazing. It is a fun, funny, awesome movie. First you wanted to kill me. Now you want to kiss me. Blow. There are, give me some sugar, baby. There are so many great lines in this movie. And that's where it ended. This was in I want to say 93? 1992. Damn it, I was a year off. So you have Evil Dead in 83, Evil Dead 2 in 87, Army of Darkness in 92. This breaks a rule that you have in movies now. Nobody has attention spans anymore. Like this video is up to 16 minutes. Guaranteed there's people who've already come in to watch this and gone, oh shit, he's talking still? I gotta go find something else to watch. There's gotta be a cute cat video out there. No. Sometimes things need time. And when you're putting together a decent series of 3 movies, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes you can do them one a year. But the attention span of today's movie-going public is short. So if a movie's sequel takes more than 2 years after the first movie came out or the last movie came out, automatically you hear, well, it's been quite a while since that last movie, and I don't know, movie-going public might have forgot all about him. How? Not if it's a good movie, we don't. Star Trek Beyond was too long after Into Darkness. It's fucking Star Trek. People will go see a Star Trek movie. The problem is, I shouldn't get onto a Star Trek bent, but whatever, I'm already there. The problem is, you've gone from all the kiddos that wanted to see the reboot. No, we want to see the new Scotty and the new Kirk. Now, because it's the 3rd movie, hardcore Star Trek fans like myself are the ones that are going. The casual fans aren't and won't. This isn't a matter of, oh, the movies aren't any good. This is a matter of the new factors wore off. The kids found a new shiny to go watch instead. So Star Trek Beyond, who cares? Who cares? Oh, who cares? And it could happen to Star Wars too. Could happen. They're making a movie every year. I think they could saturate the market and end up where even if the movies are great quality, they drop in box office. There was a movie that made a lot of box office in 2013 on its budget. This movie made almost $100 million worldwide. This movie was banned. This movie has some of the most fleshed out characters that an Evil Dead movie ever had. This has nothing for characters at all. This has Ash giving Linda a necklace, and then everybody dies. This also has that same necklace as a callback, and you find out who these people are. It's not great character development because it's a horror movie. It got good reviews. This did not. It has really good special effects and almost no CGI whatsoever. This had no CGI, but the effects you can see how fake they are now. It's fake. A shoestring budget. I'm not hating on this movie. I'm saying that this movie got hated on a lot when it came out. And I don't understand it. This movie doesn't try to be the original Evil Dead. Fede Alvarez didn't come out and say, hey, I can do a movie that's better than the original Evil Dead. No. He came out and basically said, you know what? We can make a movie 30 years later, which is scary, which is graphic, and which does a lot of the callbacks to the original. He was very smart. There's no cell phones in this movie. The Jeep they're driving could have been a Jeep from the 70s, Jeep from present day. It doesn't matter. At no point in this movie do they talk about modern day anything or 70s anything. So this movie can take place in any place in time. It could have been in the 70s, could have been the 80s, could have been now. It doesn't matter. And I appreciate horror movies these days that don't matter. Doesn't matter when they take place. The horror movie is in its own universe. The fact that there's no scene in this movie where a person pulls out their cell phone and it says no signal makes me happy. Now, Fede Alvarez admits that scene existed. It existed. There was a scene when David's trying to get his sister out, and the water's risen to biblical heights. He does check his cell and sees there's no signal. So basically, it's I can't cross that water. I wonder if there's any way to contact emergency crews. There's nothing. I can't contact anybody. Makes sense. I don't mind that use of it, but I'm glad it was taken out. Now, there's some wonderful, wonderful stuff in this movie. Eric should have been dead about 8 times in this movie. And people use that as a criticism. They're like, well, he should have been dead from the glass shard in his chest. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. He should have been dead from the nail gun attack. Oh, absolutely. He should have been dead from the crowbar smashes. Absolutely. But he's not. And it's like the evil force in this movie keeps him alive just long enough. Just long enough. He gets absolutely destroyed. Eric is a callback to what happens with Ash in the first 2 movies. And he's not the final survivor. Ash is an amazing hero, but this movie does something that completely throws the whole thing on its head. The first person that becomes possessed is the hero. In the end, Mia is the hero. She's got the chainsaw on her arm, and it's grim, and it's nasty in parts. There's at least 3 parts of this movie I still wince, and I have to kind of half turn away from the screen when they happen. There's the electric knife with the arm, and I know that's fake. I know, it's just so much blood. There's and then when it drops to the floor in the kitchen, that's hilarious. And then there's Mia pulling her hand off. And it's so visceral. And then there's the cutting off her face part. Done by Jessica Lucas. She's a registered nurse. Oh, right, you're the doctor. Registered nurse, actually. In that scene, you can almost see that, like, the 2 of them want to start punching each other in the face. Because it's like, he was mine, he's mine now. What's that, bitch? Take that back. I honestly think that there's a lot of stuff they cut out of this movie that is too bad. Apparently, they did the callback of the cards, where I'm predicting what cards you're holding. It's wrong. They did the part where Mia's in the cellar singing, "We're gonna get you, we're gonna get you, time to go to sleep, not another peep." They cut that out. It's in every trailer, though. I think that pissed some people off. And I get why they would cut that out, because it's like, oh, that's too many callbacks. But seriously, this movie is a love letter to the original, and it's an update. It's not a reboot either. See, that's the genius of setting the movie without setting the year, is that I always pictured Mia stumbling off at the end of this movie and coming across another cabin and finding an old, withered Bruce Campbell with a big old fucking beard on him, talking about fighting the Deadites and how his life's been destroyed and ruined by them. But they never did a sequel. It's not that everybody hated this movie. It's just a matter of the timing was all wrong, and then Sam Raimi was going to do he was going to do a sequel to this, and then a sequel to this. So there's going to be Army of Darkness 2, and then Evil Dead 2, where Mia and Ash would cross paths and work together. I was really excited. Then the deal with Starz came out, Starz Network. Instead, now, and anybody who's an Evil Dead fan knows, we have Ash versus the Evil Dead, which I don't have access to in Canada, because I'm not subscribing to Super Channel just to get the Ash versus the Evil Dead series, because I'd have to cancel some of my other channels in order to justify another $20. They're not on DVD yet, so I haven't watched the first season, and I've read no spoilers, so please no spoilers in the comments. But it's too bad, because Mia, honestly, coming out of this experience, the potential for her to become a wisecracking, awesome, kick-ass chick was there. And The Evil Dead series is in good hands with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. I have no doubt that I will love Ash vs. the Evil Dead, that I will get a tremendous kick out of that series. But it's a shame because what they've done essentially is they've cut the neck of this one so that when Evil Dead fans look back 5-10 years from now, they'll say, well, don't watch that one. That one doesn't have anything to do with it. That was just some stupid idea they had. The commentary track on this movie is amazing. And they've got behind the scenes featurettes, which are also amazing. I highly recommend both. So why would I be reviewing all of this today? Because today I'm going to see Don't Breathe by Fede Alvarez, starring Jane Levy. She's being raped by a tree here, which I actually thought in this movie was done better than in the original, and less graphically than the original. In a way, I guess. I could never quite figure out in the original. I always thought that Sam Raimi had a problem with a woman's anatomy because she would have died by the way they depicted a branch going in here and coming out somewhere else. She's dead because that's going through all the intestines. She's dead. She's dead. She's not running back to the cabin. She's just dead because it clearly cut right through the intestines and just went straight, there. She's dead. But yeah, it's a shame that this movie's been kind of cut off now, and that I'm one of the vocal minority who still absolutely loves it and watches it probably about 3 times a year. It's because it's grueling sometimes. There are days where I'll watch the first 20 minutes and then turn it off. Because if you watch just the first 20 minutes, it's a movie about a girl who goes out to a cabin with her friends to get off heroin, and somebody reads out of a book and she pukes. And that's the end. So you just stop there. And then it's just basically she's having withdrawals and she pukes. And that's the end of the movie. And you go, wow, I really hope she made it. I will say this. I don't recommend demonic possession for heroin withdrawals. But at the end of the movie, she is surprisingly well adjusted for everything she's been through. And the fact that she should be going through heroin withdrawals. That is the one. Well, there are other plot holes, but that's one that kind of stands out. Isn't she going through heroin withdrawals? Or just seeing demonic forces and her friends getting stabbed in the neck, does that just override any withdrawal she's having? Because I really think that's a horrible way to treat people who have drug addictions. I think having to kill a bunch of people to save one who has drug addiction, probably not an effective way of curing a drug addiction. But for those of you who haven't seen the Evil Dead series, I just ruined it for you. I haven't gone into the deaths and any of that stuff. I cannot recommend any of these movies enough. I can't. But I honestly think the best of all of them, it's a tie between Evil Dead 2 and the reboot in 2013. Army of Darkness is close behind that, and then the original Evil Dead trails behind, only because the acting is bad, and some of the special effects have not aged at all well. And it's not Raimi's fault. Raimi's a genius and a god in the industry. But when I hear people say, well, the original was great, this new one's just a piece of crap, I think, I'm a fan of the original movies. I have them. You don't have to hate on the new one just because you love the original. It's not required. And then when they say, well, there's no character development in the new ones, I think, there's no characters in the originals. It's just, here's a person, they're dead. Oh, here's a person, they're possessed. Oh, look, it's Sammy Jo. Oh, she swallowed an eyeball. That's Sammy Jo. Wait, you never found out who she was. And it's too bad. It's genuinely too bad that people go into movies now and they just want to tear them to pieces. And that happens a lot. We all turn into movie reviewers when we're in a movie these days, because there is the internet, there is, venues like this to review movies and tear them to pieces. And it's fun. I would do better. And then you hear when somebody says that and you say, well, what would you have done? And then they tell you. And 9 times out of 10, you'll go, that's a terrible idea. That that would suck. That would be awful. So it's not an easy thing to do. This whole making movies thing is hard. And Fede Alvarez knew he was up against a very loyal, passionate fan base, and that a lot of them were going to hate him, and he made the movie anyways. And for that reason alone, I respect Evil Dead. But for the fact that he made a tremendously amazing movie, that's why I'm going to see Don't Breathe today. So later on today, I will be posting my reviews, it was plural, because I'm seeing Don't Breathe, and then I'm seeing Suicide Squad. So I don't worry about spoilers with this, because people who are going to watch this have probably already seen the movies. But when I post reviews for Suicide Squad and Don't Breathe, I am not going to talk about spoilers in the beginning, and I will warn you when spoilers are coming. So keep your finger on either the stop or this pause or whatever you got to do, because I will talk about spoilers, but I won't do it in the beginning. Anyways, this has been a half an hour. I appreciate your time. This has been fun. I will be talking about other movies I'm passionate about and why I honestly think a lot of the hate that comes across online for movies now is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll get you a time machine. We'll go back to 1985. I'll take you to a local movie theater, and then you can tell me how great movies were in the 80s, because we all remember them as being better than what they were. Except Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is just delightful and fantastic. And Back to the Future and Goonies. They're both amazing. And John Hughes movies. Anyways, thanks for watching.